Welcome to Shadow Fear. Tonight we journey deep into the misty heart of the Appalachian Mountains, where beauty and terror walk hand in hand. These are 8 of the most disturbing true Appalachian horror stories ever told, from ghostly lights drifting over black rivers to ancient forces that never should have been disturbed. Prepare yourself for 5 bone-chilling true Texas horror tales that blur the line between the real and the impossible. But before we begin, a warning. Most viewers make a fatal mistake. They leave before hitting subscribe, and when they do, they miss out on the darkest stories ever unearthed. Don't make that mistake. Hit that button now. Join us before the night claims you too, so tell me, where are you watching from? What time is it there? Because in this place, time doesn't matter. The night is endless, and what's waiting in the dark is already awake now. Let's step into the shadows. Let's dive into the darkness. They told us not to talk about the lights, said it was bad luck to even mention them by name. But when you've lived long enough in Harlan County, you learn there are things older than luck and meaner than sin. Now, I ain't one for ghost stories, but what I saw that autumn, I can't explain. And believe me, I've tried. It started the way most evil things do around here, quiet. The year was 1983. The leaves were just starting to burn orange across the hills, and the air smelled like coal dust and rain. I'd been working the number 12 mine out past the Harlan River for nearly 15 years. Hard work, honest work. The kind that chews up your back and leaves soot in your lungs but puts food on the table. The mountain's always been good to us, and cruel in equal measure. You dig deep enough, you find more than coal. You find history, bones, whispers. You find her, that's what my granddad used to say. The mountain's got a heartbeat, boy, he'd tell me, tapping his chest. And sometimes she remembers what we took from her. Back then I thought it was just mountain talk, the kind of nonsense old-timers spill when they've had too much whiskey and not enough light. But I was wrong, dead wrong. The cave-in happened on a Thursday. I remember because the morning sky looked bruised, heavy like it was holding back tears. 7 men went in that day, and only 1 came out. We were halfway through the afternoon shift when the radio crackled and then just died. The earth gave a groan like something waking up and the walls started to shake. I'll never forget that sound. A deep rolling moan that you feel in your ribs more than you hear with your ears. By the time we got to the main shaft, it was gone. Collapsed like a throat closing shut. 7 men trapped inside, no chance of digging them out. I remember standing there, my helmet light cutting through the dust, thinking I could still hear them. Voices faint and far, like the wind was carrying their last prayers up through the stone. We sealed the entrance that night. Had to. It was too dangerous to dig again. The company said it was over. An act of God, they called it. But the widows didn't see it that way. Harlan's a small place. Word gets around quickly. By the weekend, the whole town had gathered for the vigil. Candles lined the riverbank, each flame flickering like a lost soul trying to find its way home. The women sang hymns while the men just stared at the black water, heads bowed, hands shaking. That river runs deep, deeper than anyone knows. Cold and dark, winding through the mountains like a vein. And that night, for the first time I saw them, the lights. At first, I thought it was reflection, moonlight maybe, or lanterns from across the bank. But the moon was hidden behind clouds, and the far side was nothing but rock and pine. They came drifting up slow, pale blue, swaying like someone was walking underwater and holding a torch. There were 3 of them at first, then 5, then 7. I counted them. 7. And something in my gut twisted because that was the number of men still buried under that mountain. The others saw them too. I heard someone whisper, "Witch lanterns," old mountain term, means the dead trying to find their way home. But these lights weren't wandering. They moved in circles, tight, deliberate, like they were searching. Then faint and far across the water, I heard a voice. It was soft, familiar, a man's voice, calling a name, his wife's name, and she heard it too. Mary Ellen Harper. Her husband Dale was one of the trapped miners. She'd been quiet all night, holding her candle tight like she was afraid to let go. But when that voice called her name, she dropped everything and stepped forward. "Dale?" she said, trembling. "Dale, is that you?" We tried to stop her, but she walked right into the water, slow like she was in a trance. The lights danced around her feet, bright and blue, swirling like they were welcoming her. The current took her before anyone could move. One second she was there, the next she was gone. All that was left were her shoes sitting neatly on the bank. After that night, no one talked about the lights. The sheriff said it was swamp gas. The preacher said it was the devil, but the old folks, they said the mountain had woken up, and she was hungry. I tried to forget. But the lights came back. Every night for a week, just before midnight, rising from the same stretch of water. Always 7. I'd sit by my window and watch them from the hill, trying to convince myself it was nothing but fog and headlights. But the nearest road was 5 miles away, and there was no fog that glowed blue. Then one night I made the mistake of listening too close. It was raining, the kind of cold, heavy rain that soaks through your soul. I went down to the river with a flashlight and a half bottle of bourbon. Foolish, I know, but grief makes you do stupid things. The air was thick, humming like power lines, and there they were again, 7 orbs floating low over the water. I swear I could feel them watching me, not with eyes, but with intent, like something inside them was aware I was there. The humming grew louder. It wasn't a sound exactly, more like a vibration in my bones. Then came the singing, low, rhythmic, like men working underground. A miner's hymn. It started as a whisper, then rose into something that made the hair stand up on my neck. The words were old, too old. The kind passed down before anyone wrote them down. I could almost make them out. Keep the flame, brothers. Keep the flame till dawn. That's when I saw her, standing on the opposite bank, half hidden by mist, Mary Ellen. Her dress was soaked, clinging to her like a second skin. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, same as the lights, and her lips were moving, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Then she pointed at me. I don't remember running, but somehow I ended up back in my house, gasping, shaking, mud all the way to my knees. I didn't go near that river again for years. The next spring, the mining company shut down. Too many accidents, too many whispers. Most folks left town, chasing work in other counties, but not me. I stayed. You can't really leave Harlan. The mountain keeps you. And every October since, those lights come back. Same number, same river, same song. I keep my distance now. But sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I can hear it again, faint, carried through the holler like the ghosts are still working down there. You want to know the part that chills me most? 2 years ago, the river flooded after a week of heavy rain, washed out half the old road and cut through the bank near where the cave-in happened. When the water receded, it left behind part of a wooden beam. And something else. A helmet. Rusted, cracked, but with a name still legible under the grime. Dale Harper. They never found a body. Just that helmet. But that night when I went to bed, I dreamed of the lights again. Only this time there weren't 7. There were 8. People ask me why I never left. Why do I still live in this godforsaken valley where the ground hums and the river sings? Truth is, you don't leave something that remembers you. The mountain doesn't care who you are, miner, preacher, sinner, saint. If you take from her, she takes back. That's the old balance. I see it now in the faces of the young ones who come here, chasing adventure or cheap land. They don't know the rules, don't understand that these hills are older than their bloodlines. They laugh when I warn them not to go near the river at night. They stop laughing when they hear the singing. Last October, a film crew came to town, big city folks making some ghost hunting show for cable. They heard about the lights, thought it'd make a good Halloween special. I told them not to go, but they went anyway. 4 of them set up cameras by the water. The 5th stayed in the van up the hill, said he'd monitor from there. They never came back. The sheriff found their equipment 3 days later, washed up a mile downstream. Cameras smashed, tripods twisted. The van door opened, the driver's seat empty. They say the only thing left intact was the microphone, still recording static. But when the techs cleaned up the audio, they swore they heard something underneath the hiss. A voice. Singing. And right before the tape cuts out, another voice. Faint. Like it's right beside the mic, whispering, "Keep the flame, brothers. Keep the flame till dawn." Now every time October rolls around, I don't sleep much. I keep a lantern lit in my window, just in case they're still looking for light. Some nights I sit out on my porch and watch the river. The mist rises slowly, curling like breath from a mouth too old to remember words. And then, there they are, the lights, 7 of them swaying, circling, singing their endless hymns. Last night I counted again, and I swear on everything holy there were 8 this time, 1 more than before. So maybe they've finally made room for me. Maybe this year, when the river calls my name, I won't run. Maybe I'll just step forward and let the mountain take back what it's owed. Because here in Harlan County we all go home the same way, down into the dark, where the lights never die. Have you ever been out in the woods so long that you start to forget the sound of your own thoughts? That's what it felt like that weekend. Just me and Tyler, 2 idiots with second-hand tents, cheap whiskey, and an old paper map that didn't show half the roads it should have. We were chasing quiet, the kind you can't find in a city, the kind that hums behind your ribs and makes you feel like the world's gone still. But quiet like that, it listens back. We were in Ashe County near the Blue Ridge stretch sometime in late October. The kind of cold that slips under your jacket and makes the air taste like rust. We weren't far from a hollow the locals called Birch Hollow, though we didn't know it by that name back then. We'd been hiking for hours. No signal. No trail markers, just endless trees. The kind that grow close together like they're whispering. And then, out of nowhere, Tyler saw something white through the brush. Looks like a cabin, he said. I remember pushing through the trees and seeing it. A small house. Pale as bone, half swallowed by vines and roots. Every wall, every board, even the door frame, it was all built from birch. The bark still clung to the wood, smooth and ghostly like it had never aged. The roof was half collapsed, but it looked deliberate somehow, like whoever built it wanted the sky to watch. I don't know why, but the sight of it made the back of my neck prickle. It wasn't just abandoned, it was waiting. Tyler, of course, wanted to explore. He had that kind of curiosity that only ever ends in trouble. Come on, man, he said, laughing. We came out here for adventure, right? I followed him, because of course I did. The door creaked when he pushed it open. Inside, the air was stale, thick with that sweet rot of wet wood and old leaves. Dust hung in beams of light cutting through the broken roof, and in the middle of the room, like a stage prop, sat a rocking chair. White birch, same as the rest of the house. It was moving, just a little. A slow, steady back and forth, creak, 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 even though the air was dead still. Tyler thought it was the wind. He always had an explanation. He stepped closer, filming with his phone, grinning like an idiot. Old houses settle, he said. Air currents, gravity, raccoons, and then it stopped. Dead still, and just like that, so did we. There was a sound. Faint, soft, like humming. A woman's voice somewhere upstairs. We both froze. Tyler looked at me, eyes wide. You hear that? Yeah, I heard it. It wasn't music exactly. Just a melody, rising and falling, sweet but sad. A tune you might hum to a baby or a ghost. Tyler whispered. Probably an echo. Wind in the rafters, but we both knew it wasn't. It had words. They were muffled, too low to make out, but they carried the weight of meaning. We stepped toward the staircase, each board underfoot groaning like it hated us for being there. The upstairs floor was caved in at the far end, just rafters and daylight poking through. But the humming, it was still there. Tyler lifted his phone, shining the flashlight across the walls. Birch paneling, warped and split, and carvings, names, dozens of them, etched by hand into the wood. Most were too faded to read, but one stood out. Ruth. Maybe this was her house, Tyler said. Whoever Ruth was. I was about to answer when something behind us clicked. We turned, and the front door was swinging shut. Slow, silent, like a hand was guiding it. The latch caught, and suddenly the air went heavy, like the whole place was holding its breath. Tyler laughed, but it came out shaky. Old hinges, he said again. Probably gravity. Then the humming stopped. A heartbeat later, something upstairs moved. A dragging sound. Footsteps. Slow and deliberate. We backed toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. Tyler yanked the handle until his knuckles went white, but it was like the wood had swollen around the frame, sealing us in. The footsteps came closer, one after another, heavy but uneven, like someone walking barefoot on glass. Then, silence. The only sound left was the faint creak of that damned rocking chair. We stood there for what felt like forever. Too scared to breathe, then Tyler whispered, "Okay, screw this. We're getting out." He found a window half shattered near the back. I helped him clear the glass, cutting my palm in the process, but I didn't care. I just wanted out. As he climbed through, something caught his jacket, like fingers. He cursed, yanking free. And that's when I saw it. For a split second, in the reflection of the broken glass, not behind us, but in the glass itself, there was a woman sitting in the rocking chair. Pale, hair long and tangled. A smile too wide for her face, and she was looking right at me. I didn't scream. Not right away. I just froze, every nerve in my body trying to pretend I hadn't seen what I saw. But the reflection didn't vanish when I turned. It stayed, and the rocking chair was moving again, back and forth, creak, creak, creak. I stumbled through the window, tearing my sleeve, landing hard in the cold mud outside. Tyler was already running toward the tree line, shouting my name. I turned back once, just once. Corinne saw the doorway. Someone was standing there. She was tall, dressed in something that might have once been white, now gray and tattered. Her skin looked like birch bark, pale, peeling thin, and she was humming again, that same tune. The sound crawled under my skin like it belonged there. Then the door slammed shut. We ran. God, we ran until my lungs felt like fire. Didn't matter that it was dark. Didn't matter that we didn't know where the hell we were. Just kept running until the forest opened up into a clearing. We didn't stop until we reached the car. Tyler drove us out of those woods without a word. Eyes wide, jaw locked. We didn't talk the whole ride back. Didn't talk about the humming or the woman, or the reflection. But when we finally stopped for gas an hour later, I realized my camera bag was gone, still in that house. I went back for it 2 days later. Don't ask me why. Curiosity, guilt, some stupid need for closure, I don't know. But I did. The road back was worse the second time. Fog hung low like smoke and the woods were silent. No birds, no insects, nothing. The world just paused. When I reached the hollow, the house was there, same as before, but quieter, heavier. The air felt wrong, like it was thicker inside. I didn't see her. Not at first. The chair was still there, swaying slightly. The door groaned open on its own, as if expecting me. My camera bag was on the floor beside it, half covered in dust. I picked it up, trying not to look anywhere else. But as I turned to leave, I saw something carved into the doorframe. Words I swear weren't there before. She never left. That's when I heard the whisper. Stay. Not a shout. Not a threat. Just a soft, pleading voice right by my ear. I dropped the bag and bolted. Didn't stop until I was in the car, shaking so hard I could barely turn the key. I told myself I imagined it. Told myself I'd been tired, scared, half drunk. But that night, I went through the photos on the camera. Most were just trees, sky, Tyler goofing around on normal stuff until the last one. It wasn't from me. I never took it. It was blurry at first glance, but when I zoomed in, I saw the ruins of the house, the trees behind it and faces, 7 of them, pale, colorless, pressed between the birch trunks, watching. Their eyes were open, but their mouths were gone. Just smooth skin where lips should have been. I dropped the camera. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. Tyler and I stopped talking not long after. He changed numbers, moved states. I heard from a mutual friend that he doesn't go camping anymore. Can't even stand the sound of creaking wood. I tried to move on too. But sometimes when the world goes still, when I'm driving at night and the fog rolls in thick, I hear that same low hum under the static of the radio, a woman's voice. Soft. Sad. And I swear, I can smell birch bark, that clean, papery scent that shouldn't exist miles from any forest. I looked up the name later. Amos Weller, preacher, built a house in 1899 for his bride, Ruth. She died before the roof was finished, fell ill before their wedding, buried in the woods beside their home. They say Amos kept preaching to her every Sunday, said she'd wake if he just prayed hard enough. Neighbors heard him talking to someone, laughing, weeping, even after he starved himself to death. When they finally buried him, they said his hands were white, covered in thin flakes, like bark. The house was left to rot. No one ever lived there again. The photo's still on my desk, though I don't remember why I haven't deleted it. Maybe part of me thinks if I erase it, she'll come looking. Sometimes in the right light, the faces in the trees look like they're moving, like they're shifting closer. And if I stare too long, I see her too, sitting in that chair, rocking, slow, smiling like she knows. Something I don't. If you ever find yourself hiking through Ashe County, if you see white bark shining through the pines, don't go near. Don't look through the windows. Don't touch the walls. And whatever you do, if you hear humming, don't answer, because she's still there waiting, and she never forgives the ones who leave. They said I stopped talking for 3 years after they found me. Truth is, I never really started again. Words don't come easy when you've heard the earth breathe, when you've felt it move beneath you like a living thing. My name's Danny Pike. I'm 59 now. I was 13 the summer we went into the hollow. 5 of us went in. Only I came back. I'm not telling this for fame or pity. I just want to put it down before I forget how to say it out loud, before it takes my voice again. Back in '74, Boone was a small place, not the tourist town it is now. You could drive 10 minutes out of town and be swallowed by the mountains. No signs, no roads, just green and silence. We were kids with too much time and not enough sense. Me, my cousin Paul, the twins, Ricky and Rob, and Jenny Moore, who I was stupidly in love with. She's the one who wanted to see the hollow. Everyone knew the stories. No animals there, no wind, no echo. Old folks said it was a cursed place, a patch of land where something fell long before man came. Others said the Cherokee wouldn't even speak its name, that the ground there was a doorway and sometimes the door opened. But kids don't listen, especially when you're 13 and trying to impress a girl. We left early, packed sandwiches and a flashlight each. It was hot that day, heavy and damp, the kind of summer heat that makes you feel like you're walking underwater. We followed the creek past the old rail bridge until the trees started to change. That's the thing I remember first, the silence. It didn't happen all at once. It sort of crept in. The birds got quieter, the cicadas faded out. Even the crunch of our boots on the trail felt muffled, like we were stepping into cotton. Then the air shifted. The smell changed. No pine, no dirt, just nothing. It's hard to describe. Like breathing in a room that's never known life. Jenny laughed and said, "Guess we found it." None of us laughed back. The hollow wasn't a clearing, not exactly. It was more like the forest itself had decided to stop living there. The trees grew twisted, bark pale and thin. No underbrush, no birds, just a dip in the land, maybe 20 yards across. Soft ground like peat. We stood there, not sure what to do. Then Paul picked up a rock and tossed it in. No sound. Not a splash. Not a thud. Nothing. We looked at each other. Rob started laughing, said the heat must have fried our brains. He clapped his hands. No echo, just nothing. It wasn't silence. Silence is something you hear. This was absence. The world had forgotten how to make noise. Ricky said he felt something under his feet, like a pulse. We all pressed our hands to the ground, and I swear to God, it was moving. Slow. Deep. Like something alive was shifting just below the surface. Then came the vibration. Faint at first, then stronger. The dirt trembled. Paul yelled that we should leave, but Jenny was staring at the center of the hollow, her eyes wide, mouth open. She said, "Do you hear that?" We couldn't, because there was nothing to hear. But her face, she looked terrified, and then she started walking toward the middle. We tried to grab her, but it was like she couldn't hear us. She just kept going, one slow step after another, until she reached the dip where the ground looked darker. She knelt, pressing her hand against the soil. Then she screamed, or maybe she didn't. Her mouth opened wide, but no sound came out. She fell forward like the earth had swallowed her hand. We ran to pull her back, and when I grabbed her arm, the ground felt soft and like warm flesh, and then it moved. The whole hollow rippled, rising in waves like water. Ricky fell backward, screaming. I think he was screaming, but we couldn't hear a thing. Paul pulled at Jenny, but the ground was sucking her in. Her face went under first, then her shoulders. Her eyes were wide open, staring at us. I'll never forget that look. She wasn't just scared. She was begging. Then she was gone. We ran, or tried to. The forest looked different, darker, closer. My flashlight flickered even though it was daylight. I looked back once. The hollow had gone still again, smooth as before, like nothing had ever happened. But the others, they weren't behind me anymore. Just gone. One blink, and they weren't there. I ran until my legs gave out. When I finally stopped, I realized something awful. I couldn't hear my own breathing. I clapped my hands, nothing. I screamed, nothing. I cried, nothing. It was like the world had erased me. Then I felt it again. The ground is moving. Closer this time. It wasn't footsteps. It wasn't digging. It was the earth itself folding in on itself, pulling closer like a lung exhaling. And from the corner of my eye, movement. Not a creature. Not even a shadow, just a shape. A place where the world wasn't. A hole darker than black sliding between the trees. Every time I blinked, it was somewhere else, coming closer. I ran again. Don't remember how long or where. The forest warped around me. I'd see light ahead. Then it'd vanish. I tripped, hit my head. And that's the last thing I remember. They found me 3 days later, walking along Route 421 barefoot, clothes torn, mud up to my knees. Said I looked hollowed out. Eyes blank. Mouth open but no sound. They thought I'd gone catatonic. I guess I had. I didn't talk for years. Couldn't every time I tried, I'd hear that nothingness again. That same deep hum of silence that doesn't belong in this world. My parents moved us to Tennessee after that. I didn't go to the funeral. There weren't any bodies to bury anyway. They called it a tragedy. Said the kids got lost, maybe fell in a sinkhole. But I know better. You can't dig a hole that eats noise. In the years since, I've tried to make sense of it. Read about infrasound, geology, natural gas pockets, anything that could explain what we saw. Nothing comes close, and I've never gone near Boone again. But last winter, I heard something on the radio. A news piece about a logging company that tried clearing that area. They said all their equipment died. Motors cut out, radios went dead, and the forest went completely silent. Workers said even their own voices disappeared, like the air refused to carry sound. They left before sunset. None of them went back. One of the loggers told a reporter it felt like the woods were breathing. That word, breathing. It hit me like a hammer, because that's what it was doing that day. The ground didn't just move. It inhaled. You don't forget a thing like that. You can't. For a long time I thought maybe it let me go on purpose, that it needed one person to tell its story. But now I'm not so sure. Last month, I woke up to silence. Real silence. No crickets, no wind, not even the hum of the fridge. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. But it was enough. I knew that feeling. I felt it again under my feet. A slow, deep vibration, like something was remembering me. Sometimes, when I'm walking, I hear a faint thump under the ground. Steady, slow like a pulse. Other times, it's in my dreams. I see the trees bending inward, hear Jenny's voice calling from under the soil. I wake up screaming, but the sound never makes it out of my throat. That's the worst part. The silence always wins. You probably think I'm crazy. That's fine. I've been called worse, but if you ever find yourself hiking near Boone, if you come to a place where the air feels heavy and your footsteps don't sound right, turn around. Don't test it. Don't call out, because if you do, it'll hear you. And once it does, you'll start to hear it too. That slow, deep rhythm of the world breathing beneath your feet. And then, when it exhales, you'll be gone. Sometimes I think it's still following me, not like a ghost, but like gravity, a shadow that moves when I'm not looking. I can feel it in the quiet moments, before dawn, when the world hasn't woken up yet. That weight in the air, that pressure in your ears right before sound returns. That's it, waiting. It's not a creature. It's not even alive, not the way we are. It's a place and a hole in the world that wants to spread, and every time someone speaks of it, every time someone listens to this story, I think it gets a little closer. So I'll stop talking now, because I can feel the floor vibrating, and if it finds me again, I won't get another chance to tell you this. Just remember, if the woods go quiet, truly quiet, don't breathe. Don't move. Don't look down. Because the hollow doesn't take you screaming. It takes the sound first. Then the rest follows. They will find this journal perhaps long after the fog has swallowed my church. If you read these words, pray for me, though prayer may no longer reach this place. I am Reverend Thomas Cole, shepherd of the flock on Brushy Ridge, and I write these lines by lamplight, while the bell above my head shivers like a living thing. It has rung, again. Midnight. I did not touch the rope. When the Lord first sent me, here in the spring of 1921, the ridge was quiet, a thin strip of pines clinging to the side of the mountain like ribs around a heart. The church was small but proud. Whitewashed boards, one crooked steeple, a bell the color of old pewter. The people of Brushy Ridge were good folk, God-fearing. Though they carried superstition in their pockets the way others carry tobacco, they spoke of lights that danced in the holler, of voices in the fog, of something they called the Bell Witch. I laughed it off from the pulpit the first Sunday, certain the devil's favorite trick was to hide in foolish talk, but laughter dies quickly here. The first toll came 3 weeks later. I had been reading by lamplight, when the sound split the air, one clean, perfect note that froze me where I sat. The hands of my clock showed 12. I hurried outside, coat half-buttoned, breath a pale ghost before me. The churchyard lay still. No wind, no movement. Yet the bell swung on its own, slow and steady. Each time it reached the top of its arc, the rope jerked as if an invisible hand tugged it. I called out, "Who goes there?" The sound died mid-swing. The bell stilled itself. The silence that followed was worse than the ringing. By morning, the congregation had heard about it. Mountain gossip travels faster than any sermon. Sister Martha said the bell was warning us of a coming death. Brother Keene swore he saw black feathers scattered by the door before dawn. I scolded them from the pulpit, but my voice trembled. That night, when the clock struck 12 again, the bell answered louder this time, clearer, as though it had learned my name. I climbed the steeple ladder with a lantern, meaning to prove some prank was afoot. The rope hung limp. The clapper swung, though no hand moved it. And carved into the inner beam where only the caretaker should ever stand were 4 deep gouges, long, curved like claws dragged through fresh pine. I left the lantern there. I did not climb again. Each night after, the ringing grew sharper. Not random, purposeful, like speech. A single tone, then 2 together, rising and falling in a rhythm almost human. The people stopped attending evening service. Livestock died in their stalls, eyes wide, tongues blackened. Children woke up screaming that a woman was whispering through the walls. On the 5th night, I found feathers at my doorstep, burned at the edges as if singed by unseen flame. I prayed until my throat bled. The bell answered anyway. I began to dream of her, a woman standing in the forest beyond the ridge, face hidden by a veil of soot. In her hand she carried a rope, and in the rope's end hung the clapper of a bell. She spoke without moving her lips. "You called, preacher." I came to worship. When I woke, my Bible lay open beside me, though I had closed it before sleep. Always to the same page, Revelation. The words glowed faintly red, the letters warm under my fingers, as if the paper itself remembered fire. I could not read them anymore without hearing the bell behind every verse. Sunday came, and I stood before an empty congregation. Only the bell kept me company, tolling faintly though no one pulled its rope. I shouted up to the rafters, "What do you want?" The bell gave one single note so loud the glass windows rattled. The hymn book slid from the pews, falling open to blank pages. My lanterns went out though no wind stirred. Then came the smell, iron and feathers, smoke and rain. Something moved in the aisle. At first I thought it was a shadow cast by my shaking hands, but it thickened, gathered itself, rose taller than any man, the shape of a woman. Her eyes 2 holes of red light, she said. "The flock is mine now." I ran from the church and did not look back until morning. By daylight, I convinced myself it had been a vision, the product of exhaustion and fear. I wrote letters to the district begging for another preacher to relieve me. None came. On the 7th night, the bell split. It began with a moan so deep it shook the steeple, then a sound like thunder trapped inside metal. When the echo faded, I found the bell cracked clean down its side, edges blackened as though from lightning. Beneath it lay a single feather, smoking, and along the steeple wall, new claw marks, fresher, deeper. I gathered the courage to hold service the next morning, though only 3 souls arrived. We sang without instruments. Even the wind refused to carry our voices. Halfway through the hymn, the bell rang again. Though broken, though mute metal, it rang. Every pane of glass shattered. The air turned hot. One of the women fainted, and from the doorway drifted that same smell, burnt feathers and brimstone. The shape waited outside, veiled in fog, watching. I knew then it was not the devil, nor a ghost. It was something older, something that fed on worship the way fire feeds on air. It wanted faith. It wanted prayer. It wanted us to listen. I locked the church and barred the doors. For 2 nights the bell stayed silent. I dared to hope it had gone. I slept for the first time in weeks. On the 3rd night, I woke to find my Bible open again. But this time the pages were blank except one verse burned clean through the paper, and the 7th angel sounded. And there were voices in heaven. Only the word voices remained unscorched. Outside the fog glowed red. The bell began to toll, not from the steeple this time, but from the woods. I followed it. God forgive me, I followed it. The path wound between trees blackened by some old fire. Every step I took, the sound shifted, always just ahead. When I reached the clearing, I saw them. Birds, hundreds of them, crows or ravens, circling in the dark. As the bell rang, they fell silent, wings folding midair, dropping like stones. When they hit the ground, smoke curled from their feathers. In their center stood the woman from my dreams. Her veil lifted, and I saw her face, white as ash, eyes hollow, mouth gone but still moving, shaping the tolling of the bell. She reached toward me. The skin of her arm flaked like soot, revealing bone that shimmered like molten metal. "Why do you ring it?" I asked. Her reply came from everywhere at once, to call the dead to worship. Then she smiled, a crack opening across nothing, and the world went dark. They will say I vanished. Perhaps they are right, but I know where I am. I can still hear the bell faint beneath the soil. Each toll is a heartbeat, each heartbeat a prayer. It is not calling me now. It is calling you. When fog gathers over brushy ridge, when the air tastes like iron and feathers drift across your porch, listen close. If you hear a cracked bell at midnight, do not go outside, do not look toward the steeple, because I am up there now holding the rope, ringing for a congregation that never stops singing. And if you climb the ridge one day and find the old church door sealed with iron nails, leave it be. The new pastor built his chapel down the hill for a reason. He says the nails keep the evil in, but nails rust and bells remember. So when the night fog rolls thick and the mountains hum, you might hear it, soft at first, then sharper. Clang. Clang. The call to worship, for the living, for the dead, for whoever still believes sound can save them. And when you hear it, know that I am still preaching, still ringing, still burning. They told me Cutter's Way didn't exist anymore. Funny thing, though, roads don't just disappear. They wait. My name's Glenn Mercer. I was a state trooper out of Randolph County, West Virginia, until I handed in my badge in the spring of 2000. The official story says I left for medical reasons. That's half true. My body's fine. My mind's another story. I'd seen wrecks before, burned out sedans, drunks wrapped around telephone poles, all the usual tragedies. But what I saw on Cutter's Way wasn't a wreck. It was a loop, a scar in the world that never healed, right? I shouldn't tell this, but the dreams won't stop. Maybe if I speak it, it'll end. Cutter's Way was an old dirt stretch west of Elkins, barely wide enough for 2 vehicles to pass. Locals said it had been part of a mining route back in the 40s, long before the state paved the new highway. Most of it was closed off, swallowed by forest and fog. I'd heard the stories even as a rookie. Drive that road after midnight, and you'll pass the same mailbox twice. I figured it was drunk talk, the kind of thing mountain folks say to keep teenagers from joyriding. Then came February 13th, 1999. Cold night, fog thick enough to chew. I was halfway through my shift when dispatch radioed a call. An old Ford pickup speeding east on Route 250, no plates visible. I was 10 miles out. I flipped the siren and headed after it. The truck turned off toward the ridge onto Cutter's Way. I almost laughed when I saw the sign. Rusted metal, bullet holes through the name. Thought it'd make a good story for the guys back at the station. I didn't know the road was already writing its own story. The dirt kicked up behind me as I followed the taillights winding through the fog. The truck was fast, too fast for that kind of terrain. Every time I gained ground, it seemed to stretch the distance again, like the space between us was elastic. I radioed in my location. Static. I tried again. Nothing. I remember the first time I noticed something was wrong. I passed a red mailbox on the left, paint peeling, the name Whitcomb stenciled in white. 50 yards later, a mile marker, 7. I kept driving. 5 minutes later, same red mailbox. Same damn name, same mile marker. I frowned, thought maybe I'd gotten turned around. The road was full of sharp bends. Maybe I'd looped without noticing. But the odometer kept climbing. Ahead, the fog parted just long enough for me to see the truck again. It hit a curve, tires spitting gravel, then vanished behind the trees. I floored it. And that's when I saw the mile marker again. I slammed the brakes. Engine idling, headlights cutting through milk-white mist. I checked the map on my passenger seat. Cutter's Way wasn't even listed. Just a thin gray line that ended in blank space. Then, in the mirror, I saw headlights, the same truck coming toward me this time. From the direction I'd just come. It passed me going maybe 40, the driver's face half hidden behind the glare. He looked wrong, like he wasn't sitting right behind the wheel, shoulders too high, head tilted as if his neck couldn't decide which way to bend. I hit the siren again. The truck didn't slow. It disappeared around the curve ahead, and then seconds later the same taillights appeared behind me. I swear on my badge. Have you ever tried to drive out of a nightmare? Every turn feels familiar. Every landmark repeats. I kept telling myself I was overtired, that the fog was playing tricks. But my gut knew better. Somewhere between the third and fourth loop the air changed. The radio hissed alive for half a second, just static. But beneath it, I thought I heard voices. Dozens of them. Old-time voices, tinny like coming through a phonograph, singing a hymn. Shall we gather at the river? Then silence again. My hand shook on the wheel. That's when I saw the sign. A rusted road sign half buried in dirt, letters barely visible under grime. Cutter's Way, 1946 flood detour. I pulled over. The truck's tire tracks were gone. Behind me, the same red mailbox waited, paint gleaming wet in my headlights. I got out. The world was dead quiet. Even my footsteps felt muffled, like the ground didn't want to echo. The fog had weight. It moved slowly like water. I called out, "State Police! Step out of the vehicle if you can hear me." The fog rippled. A shadow crossed the beams of my light. A figure standing in the road about 30 yards ahead. I thought it was the driver at first. But no, the clothes were wrong. The man wore a cap and suspenders, trousers high to his ribs, the kind of outfit my granddad wore in old photos. He lifted a lantern. Inside it burned not fire but something bluish cold, and his face, I'll never forget his face. Half of it was missing. Just bone, blackened like charcoal. He opened his mouth and I thought he said something, but I couldn't hear words, just the sound of gravel sliding. Tires spinning, the crash of water. Behind him, the fog throbbed with light, headlights again, 3 of them this time, crawling through the mist like ghosts. Then the figure vanished. The sound followed, the low growl of an engine somewhere beneath the earth. I ran back to the cruiser, gunned it, and tried to get off that road. It didn't matter which way I turned. Mailbox, mile marker, again and again. Sometimes I'd see shapes in the fog, faces pressed against the glass, eyes wide, mouths open. No breath, no words. Once I swear I saw my own reflection driving the other way. Same uniform, same car, same me. Only his face was pale and wet and he was screaming. I must have blacked out. The next thing I knew, I was parked at the edge of the ravine east of town, engine dead, morning sun bleeding through the trees. No sign of the truck. I radioed dispatch. This time, they answered like nothing was wrong. Said I'd been off radar for almost 6 hours. I wrote it up as a lost suspect in fog conditions. Couldn't explain the rest. Didn't try. But 2 weeks later, a logging crew clearing brush along the ridge found a pickup in the ravine. Old Ford, no plates. They called me out to see it. When I saw it, my stomach turned to ice. Same make, same dents, same cracked windshield, but the license plate said 1946 inside. Were 3 skeletons, 2 men and a woman, wearing Clothes that hadn't been sold since Truman was president, and the strangest part, the ignition key was still warm. They said it was probably an old flood victim's vehicle unearthed by erosion. That's what the official report says, but I knew better. I saw that truck drive. I chased it. I saw the man behind the wheel. He was already dead. I quit the force that spring. Moved away for a few years, tried to pretend roads were just roads again. Didn't work. Every few nights, I dream I'm back there, behind the wheel, fog pressing against the windshield, the speedometer needle trembling. I pass the same mailbox, same mile marker. In the dream, I know if I stop, I'll see headlights behind me. Sometimes I do stop. Sometimes the lights catch up, and when they do, I see the truck beside me again, window rolled down, driver's seat empty, but the passenger seat isn't. There's a figure there wearing my old trooper hat, smiling. A few months ago, I went back to Elkins. Don't ask me why. Nostalgia, guilt, curiosity. The locals told me Cutter's Way was gone, reclaimed by landslide and forest. But one of the older guys at the diner said, "You can still find it if you start at the river turnoff and drive after midnight." I told him I wasn't looking for it. He laughed and said, "That road finds you, son." That night at the motel, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I heard tires on gravel outside my window, slow, steady, crunching past. I looked out, fog, headlights, a truck, old as memory, rolling down the street. Have you ever noticed how some dreams feel like invitations? Sometimes late at night I catch myself driving again without meaning to. Highway empty, fog crawling low, then a turnoff sign half hidden by weeds, Cutter's Way. My hands tremble on the wheel, but they always turn, and once I'm on that dirt stretch, it's too late, no sound but the hum of the engine, no world beyond the fog. I pass the same red mailbox, the same mile marker, and I know if I just keep driving, maybe I'll find where the road really ends, but deep down I already know, it doesn't. People think roads lead somewhere. They don't. They're circles carved into time, Cutter's Way isn't haunted, it's hungry. It wants drivers, engines, choices, it wants motion that never stops. Maybe that's why it keeps showing up in my dreams. Because somewhere, I never left that night. Maybe the real me is still out there, siren howling through endless fog, chasing a truck that's been dead since 1946, and maybe, if you ever find yourself driving near Elkins after midnight, you'll see me too. Blue lights flashing in the mist. And if you pass the same mailbox twice, don't look back because the road might remember you, and once it does, it'll never let you go. You don't forget a song like that. 60 years on, I can still hear every note, slow and sweet as honey, soft as breath. Some nights it drifts through the open window, even though the house is long gone. That's how I know she's still down there. My name's Margaret Hensley, and I ran a boarding house in Pikeville back in 1962. We called it the Hensley Home. 10 rooms, 2 baths, a parlor that smelled of lemon oil and cigarettes. It wasn't fancy, but it was steady. Miners stayed with us, traveling salesmen, and a few college boys when the university built their new campus. We kept clean sheets and hot coffee, and folks always said the place felt homely. Until the singing started. The first night, I thought it was the radio. It was late and after midnight, and I was finishing the books in the front office. I heard it drifting through the floor. A woman's voice, low and lilting, singing a lullaby I didn't recognize. The tune wound up from the boards like smoke. Sleep, my baby. Don't you cry. The river's deep and the stars are high. Beautiful but sad. Too sad, I checked every room. All my guests were asleep. The only radio was in room 4 and it wasn't even plugged in. When I came back downstairs, the song had stopped. I told myself it was my imagination. The pipes maybe, or the hum of the furnace. But deep down, I knew better. The sound had come from below. By the end of that week, other guests began to hear it too. A salesman from Lexington knocked on my door at 2 in the morning, pale as milk. "Mrs. Hensley," he said, "you got someone living under the floor?" He said the singing had woken him. The same lullaby, clear as day, right under his bed. Next morning, 2 miners checked out without collecting their deposit. "They wouldn't even take the front steps," one of them told me. "That woman down there ain't singing for us, ma'am. She's singing to something." I hired a plumber to look for leaks, thinking maybe water was echoing through the ducts. He went down to the basement, came back 20 minutes later looking gray. "You got a crawl space under the old kitchen," he said. "The door's been sealed up with wooden nails." "Ain't on the plans." I followed him down. The boards beneath the pantry were newer than the rest, nailed tight, seams tarred over. The floor there was warm, though the air around it was cold enough to see our breath. That night the song came again. "Sleep, my baby, sleep below." The floorboards creaked with every note like the house itself was breathing along. 2 days later I couldn't take it anymore. I fetched a crowbar and tore up the boards myself. The wood came up easy, almost willing. Underneath was a square of stone, not dirt, not foundation, but actual cut stone blocks, the kind you'd see in an old church. And in the center of that stonework was a trap door. Iron handle, rusted shut. I pried until it gave. The hinge screamed. A breath of air rose out, warm, damp, with the smell of dust and lilac and something else. Something sweet and spoiled. I shone my flashlight down. Steps. 12 of them, carved into the rock. At the bottom, darkness. And then the singing started again, louder this time, clearer, no echo. No reverb. It wasn't down there. It was around me. I should have called the sheriff right then, but curiosity's a wicked sin. I took the light and went down. The cellar walls were smooth stone, gray and sweating with moisture. My beam caught the outline of shapes on the floor. Toys, children's toys, little wooden blocks, a cracked doll, a ball with faded stripes. They were arranged in a perfect circle. In the center sat a rocking horse. Paint flaked, mane half gone, one eye missing. It rocked. Slow, back and forth. No draft, no wind. Just motion. My flashlight flickered. The song stopped mid-note like the breath had been pulled from the singer's throat. Then faintly from somewhere deeper in the stone, a sigh. I ran. The sheriff came the next morning. Name was Harold McCreary. Big man, patient man. Not quick to believe in nonsense. He went down into that cellar himself. Stayed maybe 5 minutes. When he came back, he wouldn't look me in the eye. "You close that thing up," he said. "Don't ask questions. What did you see?" I asked. He shook his head. "Didn't see. Felt air down there's wrong. Heavy. Like somebody standing right beside you, breathing down your neck." I asked if he heard the song. He said no, but I heard the echo of it. Then he left and I never saw him again. After that, the singing stopped for a while. The guests came back. For a few months, things almost felt normal. Then winter came and the ground froze hard as iron. That's when the walls started to sweat again. At first, it was just damp patches, then puddles. Then the smell, sweet like lilac and rot. And under that smell, faint but steady, a hum, the tune of that same lullaby, drawn out and low as if someone were humming it through their teeth. I nailed the trapdoor shut. Burned sage. Had the preacher bless every room didn't help. The noise spread through the pipes now, a whisper in the radiators, a sigh in the vents. Guests left in the night. One woman fainted in the hallway after saying she saw a child's hand reach from under her door. The house was dying by inches, and I was dying with it. In the spring of '63, I decided to sell. But word had gotten around. No one would buy. I lived there alone for 7 years. Couldn't leave. Felt like she wouldn't let me by then. The song only came on certain nights, when the rain hit the roof just right. When the moon was thin and the valley fog rolled low. Each time it was different. Sometimes it was one voice. Sometimes it sounded like many, weaving together. Soft and tender like a mother's choir. And once, just once, I heard a child answer. A single note, high and bright like a laugh turned into music. In 1970, the county condemned the building. Said the foundation was unstable, though no one had inspected it. I watched them tear it down. Big yellow machines chewing through the walls, windows shattering. Dust rising in clouds. When they reached the old kitchen, the foreman stopped the work. He said the ground there was hollow. They dug 2 feet and hit stone. Another foot and they found bones, and small ones, delicate as birds. A doctor said they were animal bones. I know better, because when the backhoe tore the last slab away, the driver jumped from the cab and ran. He swore he heard singing coming from the dirt. After they cleared the land, they left it empty. No one built there again. Grass grows fine on every side of that lot except the center where the cellar once was. The soil there stays bare, black and wet even in summer. Sometimes kids dare each other to spend the night there. They don't last long. Every generation has its story. Some say the place was an orphanage that burned down. Others say a woman lost her children and sang to their graves. But I know what really happened. That cellar wasn't a place of death. It was a place of waiting. A nursery, maybe, for something that never stopped wanting to be born. I live up the hill now, in a small apartment overlooking the valley. Too old to run, too tired to fight memory. But some nights, when the wind comes up the ridge, I hear it again. Faint, gentle, like it's coming from under the floor even though there's no floor left to hide it. Sleep, my baby, sleep below. It's not always the same. Sometimes the voice sounds young. Sometimes it sounds like mine. And sometimes, when I hum along without meaning to, the air in the room thickens, warm, close, the way it felt that first night in the cellar. Then I feel a breath in my ear. A child's voice whispers, "Sing with me, Mama." I don't remember ever having children. But lately I dream of a little girl with dark curls and bare feet, sitting on a rocking horse in a circle of toys. She looks up at me and smiles. Her mouth doesn't move when she sings. The sound comes from the walls. When I wake, the tune lingers. Always the same melody, always ending on the same word, below. I tried to record it once. Set a tape machine by the window when the fog was thickest. When I played it back the next morning, there was no music, just the sound of breathing, mine, and someone else's. Right at the end, before the tape cut off, a woman's voice whispered, "Sleep now, Margaret." That's my name. I don't tell this story much anymore. People look at me like I'm touched, or they smile politely and change the subject. But last month a man came up from Lexington, said he was researching haunted places for some radio show. I told him everything. He smiled the whole time, said he'd come back to record. I never saw him again. 2 days later, the sheriff's office found his car parked by the old lot. The driver's door opens. The only thing left inside was a tape recorder. They played it at the station. All it captured was a woman singing to a child, soft and slow. "Sleep, my baby, don't you cry." Then a man's voice, faint, whispering, "She's here." And after that, nothing but breathing. The deputies asked if I wanted to hear it. I said no, but I did anyway. They played it once, and the air in that office went still. Phones cut out. Clock stopped ticking. When the song ended, every man in that room swore they smelled lilac. They say the tape won't play anymore, just hiss and static. But sometimes when the valley goes quiet and the wind turns from the south, I hear it again, the melody sliding between the hills like fog. I hum along softly, because I think that's what she wants. Maybe that's how she finds her voice, through ours, and maybe when I'm gone, she'll have someone else to sing to. Until then, I keep a chair by the window and listen, because silence is worse than the song, and somewhere beneath this world, under all our floors, a mother still rocks her child, mine, back and forth, forever, singing the only lullaby she ever knew. They'll tell you I went mad, and maybe they're right. But before the fire takes me, before the night closes its mouth around this shack, I need to leave something behind, a record, a warning, whatever you want to call it. My name is Earl Danner, and I'm the man who dug too deep. I've been chasing gold since I was old enough to swing a pick. Never found much more than fool's dust, but I kept at it. Stubbornness runs thicker than blood in these mountains. After the mines shut down around Paintsville, I stayed behind. The others moved on, said the veins were tapped, the tunnels bad luck. But I'd seen something once, a glimmer, just a flash, deep in the old number 9 shaft, and it burned in my mind for years like a promise. So when I started hearing stories about that place, about strange tremors and lights under the ridge, I figured maybe the mountain was trying to tell me something. I should have known the mountain doesn't speak. It warns. The entrance to number 9 was sealed back in '38 after a collapse killed 4 men. I remembered them well. 2 brothers named Cray, a boy named Jonas who used to whistle gospel songs in the dark, and a foreman whose face I can't picture anymore, no matter how hard I try. I pried those boards open with a crowbar one October morning just after the first frost. Cold air came rushing out, thick with dust and something else, like copper and rot. the smell of the earth's insides. I told myself it was just the old air trapped too long. But even then, part of me knew that smell didn't belong to anything buried naturally. It took half a day to haul my gear inside. The first 100 yards were easy, beams still held, rails rusted but solid. Then the tunnel began to narrow, the walls slick with moisture. My lantern light caught flecks in the rock that gleamed like gold. I chipped a few out. Fool's gold, sure enough, pyrite. I cursed, wiped the sweat from my face, and went deeper. Around the fourth chamber, I felt it for the first time. The tremor. Just a soft shudder at first, like the ground exhaling. The dust shook loose from the ceiling in little waterfalls. I stopped, listened, waited for it to settle. The air was wrong down there. Too warm, too still. The kind of air that's been sitting too long in a closed grave. Still, I kept going. I told myself gold doesn't come easy. By dusk, I'd reached a dead end, solid wall, no sign of passage. I almost turned back. Then I noticed something strange about the rock face. It wasn't rough like the rest, and it was smooth, polished almost. I ran my hand across it, and I swear it felt soft. Not like flesh exactly, but like the memory of it. I took my pick and struck once. The sound that came back wasn't stone hitting stone. It was hollow, like a striking bone. On the third swing, the wall cracked open. A gust of air burst out, hot and wet, smelling of sulfur and iron. My lantern sputtered. The flame turned blue. When the smoke cleared, I saw it, a hole in the world wide enough to crawl through, leading into a cavern that wasn't on any map. I went in. The floor was smooth, worn down like something had moved over it for centuries. The walls glistened with a faint oily sheen, catching the lantern light and throwing it back in ripples. Then I saw the carvings. At first I thought they were fossils, impressions of shells or roots. But when I looked closer, my stomach turned. They were faces, hundreds of them, pressed into the stone like something soft had been forced against it and hardened there. Men, women, children, mouths open, eyes wide. Some looked like they were screaming. Others looked like they were still trying to breathe, and as I stared, I realized something worse. They were moving. Not much. Just a tremble like wind passing under skin. The eyes shifted. The lips twitched. The whole cavern seemed to pulse, slow and steady, as though the mountain itself were breathing through those faces. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the lantern. My boot hit something round, a skull, only it wasn't like any human skull I'd seen. It was flattened, the jaw fused shut, the sockets deep and stretched. I heard a whisper then. Not from behind me. Not from in front, but from everywhere at once. A chorus of voices, soft and low, speaking words I didn't know. The sound crawled into my ears and down my spine like fingers made of sound. The lantern flickered. The faces on the wall began to shift more quickly, their mouths opening wider. From the cracks between them, something black began to ooze, thick, slow, like tar. I ran. The tunnel shook behind me. I could feel the heat rising from the hole and hear the stone groan like it was alive. By the time I reached the surface, night had fallen. The moon hung fat and red, and the ground under my boots was trembling. I dropped to my knees, gasping, my hands slick with sweat and black dust that smelled of blood. That's when I noticed the marks on my palms. Shallow ridges, like something had gripped me too tight. I went straight to town, straight to the bar, still covered in dirt and shaking. The men there went quiet when they saw me. "Earl," one of them said, "you look like you've seen hell itself." I told them what I saw, the carvings, the faces, the movement. I must have been shouting because the bartender begged me to calm down. When I said the faces were still alive, they all stared like I'd grown horns. "Don't dig there again," one said. "That ain't gold down there. That's the mountain's skin." They laughed to make themselves brave, but I saw the fear behind it. I left before dawn. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw those faces shifting in the rock. I could hear the whispering through the walls of my shack, faint, almost like the wind under the door. But it wasn't the wind. It was words sliding under my skull like oil. "Come back." That's what it said. Over and over, "Come back." I poured whiskey down my throat until the voices blurred into dream, but even asleep, I could feel the ground moving. The tremors never stopped. Next morning, I found my tools outside the door, laid out neat like someone had placed them there. Pick, shovel, lantern. The metal of the pickaxe was bent, twisted almost double. As if by heat, the handle was warm to the touch. I didn't put it there. That's when I realized the mountain wasn't done with me. You can't dig into something that deep and expect it to forget. It had opened itself to me, and now it wanted something back. By evening, the whispers grew louder. Sometimes they sounded like voices I knew. Jonas, the whistling boy calling from the dark. Sometimes they sounded like my own voice echoing from beneath the floorboards. I tried to pray, but the words wouldn't come out right. My tongue felt heavy, thick with dust. When I spat into the basin, the spit was black. The last thing I'll write is what I saw tonight. The ground outside's been trembling since sunset. Every few minutes, the lantern flickers, though there's no wind. A crack has opened under the floorboards. I can see light coming from it and a faint red glow, like the coals of a dying fire. And from that crack, I can hear them singing, hundreds of voices, soft and low, the same way the earth hums after thunder. I think they're calling my name. The walls are sweating again. The air's gone thick. I hear the ground breathing, slow and deep, and I know the faces are still moving down there. I can't leave. My legs won't obey. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's something else. Maybe the mountains already claimed me. I remember what Jonas used to say before the collapse. Every swing of a pick wakes something up. He was right. We've been waking it for generations, peeling back the skin of the world to steal what's inside. Now it's opening its eyes. If anyone finds this, don't come looking for me. Don't dig here. Don't even walk the ridge when the moon is full. You'll feel the tremor first and just a little hum under your boots. You'll think it's nothing. Then you'll hear the whisper. If you listen too long, you'll understand the words. And once you do, you'll start digging too. Because that's what it calls. It makes you want to. Open the earth and see the faces for yourself. But they're not carvings. They're mouths, and they're hungry. The walls are glowing now. The cracks widening. Something's coming through. I can see the outline of hands pressing against the boards. Not from above, but from below. The faces on the walls of that cavern. They weren't trapped. They were holding something in, and I broke the seal. The floor's splitting. If I stop writing, it's because it's here. I can hear the voices right under me in thousands. All whispering the same thing. They're saying, come back. They told me I was lucky to make it out alive. But luck doesn't leave you waking up every night at 2:17, hearing someone knocking from inside your dreams. My name's Caleb Morton, and I was one of the 5 hikers who went missing on Devil's Backbone Trail in the spring of 2015. The reports say only 4 of us disappeared. That's not true. All 5 of us did. I just came back wrong. We were students at Appalachian State. Me, my girlfriend Rachel, and our friends Devin, Melissa, and Tyler. The plan was to hike Devil's Backbone over a long weekend, camp at the ridge, and come back Sunday. Everyone in Boone knows the stories about that trail, about how people get turned around, about the cabin that only shows up when you're lost. I laughed it off. Thought it was just backwoods folklore. Now I know it's real, and it's waiting. The first day was fine. Blue skies, clear trails, the smell of pine and earth so thick it filled your lungs. We joked, took pictures, and shared a flask of whiskey by a creek. The trouble started after sunset. We were about 8 miles in when the fog rolled down the ridge, sudden, heavy, like a tide coming in. One minute you could see for miles, the next you couldn't see your own boots. Our GPS lost signal. The compass spun circles. Tyler said we should camp and wait till morning. But Rachel swore she could see a light through the trees, like a lantern swinging in the fog. We followed it. After 20 minutes of stumbling uphill, we came to a clearing. That's when we saw it. A cabin oared, half collapsed, built from blackened logs slick with moss. The roof sagged, chimney cracked, windows boarded from the inside. No reason for it to be there. The maps showed nothing but forest for miles. But we were cold, and the fog was getting thicker, so we decided to stay. Biggest mistake of my life. The front door was hanging by one hinge. We had to shove it open. The inside smelled like rain and old ashes. Devin found a half-rotted table and said it looked like somebody had been there once. Empty cans, a blanket, a rusted lantern. Rachel called it creepy but cozy. She always tried to find the good in things. We set up sleeping bags in what used to be the main room. The walls were covered in scratches. Not words exactly, just long, deep gouges that ran from floor to ceiling. Tyler joked it looked like somebody had been keeping score. We laughed, but nobody meant it. That night I woke to a sound, not wind, not rain, it was knocking. 3 slow raps somewhere behind the walls. I thought it was a branch hitting the siding until I realized it was coming from inside, from under the floorboards. I woke Rachel. She listened, wide-eyed. The knocking came again, steady this time. Devin mumbled that it was probably animals. Then we all froze, because from under the floor, a woman's voice started humming, low and tuneless, but human. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then stopped. We didn't sleep after that. Morning came gray and wet. The fog hadn't lifted. We decided to pack up, but when we stepped outside, the trail was gone. No path. No markers, just trees in every direction. The GPS was still dead. Phones too. Tyler said we should head east toward the river. We picked a direction and walked. After about an hour, Rachel stopped dead. "Caleb," she whispered. "Look, through the fog, maybe 50 yards ahead, and the cabin. Same roof, same boards, same broken door. We walked in a full circle. At least, that's what I thought until I noticed something different. The door was closed. We hadn't shut it. I was sure of that. Tyler swore it was just a coincidence, that there were probably a dozen old hunting shacks in these hills. But when we opened the door again, our sleeping bags were still inside, and on the table, a photograph. None of us had seen it before. It showed the 5 of us standing on the porch, smiling except none of us remembered taking it, and in the window behind us, there was someone else, a 6th. Figure, tall, thin, no face, just a shadow wearing a backpack. Rachel's backpack, she screamed. Devin dropped the picture and said we needed to get the hell out. We ran until our legs gave out, until the fog thinned just enough to see daylight through the trees. When we finally stopped, Tyler wasn't with us. We shouted his name for an hour. Nothing. Then the fog came back. By late afternoon, we found another clearing, smaller, ringed by pines so dense they almost formed a wall. Rachel sat down, shaking, saying we should wait for rescue. Devin wanted to climb a tree to get his bearings. He never made it. He was halfway up when the tree started shaking. Not from wind, but like something inside it was moving. He screamed and fell. When I ran to help him, he was gone. No blood. No tracks, just gone. Rachel started crying, said she wanted to go home, said the forest wasn't real anymore. I tried to hold her, to promise we'd be fine, but the fog was closing in again, thicker than before, rolling between the trees like smoke. That's when we heard footsteps. Slow, crunching leaves, deliberate, circling us. I shouted for Tyler. No answer. The footsteps stopped. Then came a whisper, right behind my ear. "You shouldn't have come." I turned, swinging my flashlight. Nothing there, but Rachel was staring at something behind me, her face drained of color. I followed her gaze. The cabin was back, only this time, it wasn't ruined. The logs were whole. The roof was fixed. A warm orange glow flickered through the cracks. Smoke rose from the chimney. We should have run. God help me, we should have run. But Rachel said, "Maybe someone's inside. Maybe they can help." She walked toward the porch before I could stop her. The door opened before she touched it. I remember the light spilling out, gold and warm, like a home you've missed your whole life. She stepped inside. The door closed behind her. I ran after her. But when I reached the porch, the cabin was dark again. The boards were rotted. The windows were boarded. I pounded on the door until my hands bled. No answer. Then, from inside, footsteps. Slow, dragging. Coming closer. The knob turned. I stepped back. The door opened just enough to see Rachel's face. Only it wasn't her anymore. Her eyes were hollow. Her skin pale as ash, and over her shoulder, something tall moved in the dark, too tall to fit the room. She smiled, the way she used to when she wanted me to trust her. Then she whispered, "We found the way home," and the door slammed shut. I don't remember leaving. I must have run, though I don't remember the trees or the trail. When I woke, I was lying beside the ranger station at the base of the mountain. They said I'd been missing for 2 days. They found my phone a mile up the ridge, beside a burned patch of earth and melted metal that used to be a camera. The others were gone. The only thing they recovered was a single photograph, scorched around the edges. The same one we'd seen in the cabin, 5 of us smiling on the porch, and the figure in the window. They told me the cabin burned down that same night. Lightning strike. They said, but I've been back twice. The pines still stand, the soil still black. But when the fog rolls low enough, you can see something between the trees, a shape that looks like a house, and if you really listen, you can hear knocking. 3 slow raps. And sometimes, a voice, Rachel's voice. She says my name, she says, come home, I don't answer anymore. I don't go near the ridge, but I still see her sometimes. Reflection in glass, shadow in fog, face in dreams, always smiling. Always wearing her pack. The doctors call it survivor's guilt. They say the mind invents ghosts to explain trauma. Maybe they're right. But when the wind comes off the mountain just right, I smell smoke. And when the fog crawls down through the valley, I see movement on the ridge. A figure waving, slow and steady. It's not a hallucination. Because when I wave back, it stops. And then the world goes quiet, not silent, but waiting. Like it's holding its breath. Like it's deciding whether to let me go or call me back. Last week I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photograph. Old. Color faded. Edges curled. 5 hikers smiling on a porch. Only this time, there were 6 figures in front of the window. And the one on the far left. The one with the short dark hair and the scar above his eye. That's me, but I never posed for that picture, and I haven't been back up there. Not yet. Tonight the fog's thick again. It's moving down from the ridge, slow as breath, curling around the street lamps. There's a knock at my door, 3 times. I tell myself it's wind, or kids, or my own guilt finally giving shape to itself. But outside, I can see it through the glass, a shape in the mist, tall, still, waving, and behind it, through the fog, the faint outline of a cabin window glowing gold. I hear Rachel's voice, clear as day. We found the way home. Caleb. The knocking comes again. I know if I open the door, I'll see her. And if I see her, I'll follow, because that's what Devil's Backbone does, and it finds the lost and gives them somewhere to belong, even if that place isn't part of this world anymore. If anyone hears this, don't go near the ridge. Don't follow the lights. Don't trust the trail. And whatever you do, when you see that cabin, don't smile for the picture.